What happens when a CEO trades his office for a mop and finds out one of his supervisors is hiding a dangerous leak? Shane Vellner stood in the warehouse hallway, staring at his reflection in the dusty glass of a vending machine. His gray janitor's polo was 2 sizes too big. His beard was gone. His thick black hair was tucked under a faded ball cap. No one would recognize him. Not here. This was Warehouse 4 of the 7 he'd inherited from his father 2 years ago. A chain of mid-sized distribution centers spread across the state, supplying hardware and industrial parts to contractors and retailers. Each warehouse ran like its own small business, with its own staff and manager. He'd never met the people working here, not once. Shane leaned on the mop. His back was already aching, and it wasn't even lunch yet. He hadn't planned to go undercover. But after 2 warehouses reported sudden cost increases, while this one kept reporting record efficiency, he started to get suspicious. No complaints, no overtime, no injuries, perfect output. Too perfect. So he made a call to the district manager, claimed they were short on night shift janitors, and volunteered a temp from a cleaning agency he conveniently owned. A fake name, a new ID, and he was in. "Hey, you done with aisle 5 yet, or you just admiring yourself again?" barked a voice behind him. Shane turned. A tall man in his 40s with a clipboard under one arm stared at him, unimpressed. "Name's Randy," the man said. "Supervisor. You mop. That's how this works. Capice?" "Got it," Shane said. He kept his voice even and flat. "Just finished 5. Moving to 6. Stay out of the loading dock," Randy snapped. "Don't need you making a mess down there." Shane raised an eyebrow but nodded. "Sure thing." He pushed the mop bucket toward aisle 6, but his mind was somewhere else. Why did a janitor need to avoid the loading dock? A younger guy with rolled-up sleeves passed him, hauling a crate on a dolly. He looked tired but nodded politely. "Hey, you're the new guy, right?" "I'm Jason." "Yeah," Shane said. "Nice to meet you." Jason gave him a quick smile. "Careful around Randy. He's got favorites." Shane noted the tone. "You one of them?" Jason laughed once. "Not even close." By noon, Shane had mopped the main aisles, the break room, and the front office. He kept his ears open. Most of the workers were quiet. Tense. He caught pieces of conversation, something about not wanting to report something, someone being written up for talking too much. In the break room, he found Fiona Darnell pouring coffee into a chipped mug. She looked up, surprised. "Didn't know we had a new janitor," she said, smiling. "I'm new," Shane said. "First day. You work here long?"
3 years, she said.
"Inventory team." "I like it. Most days." "Most?" She hesitated. "There's good people here. But the way things are run lately." She trailed off, shrugging. Shane didn't press. She didn't know him anything. Later that afternoon, Shane decided to ignore Randy's warning. The loading dock was quiet. The air smelled faintly like chemicals. He spotted a wet patch on the concrete near the back wall. Yellowish slick. He crouched down and touched it with a glove. It hissed faintly. His stomach clenched. He stood and followed the trail to a stack of drums hidden behind some pallets. One of the drums was leaking. A slow drip at the base, pooling into a crack in the floor. He knew what that was: industrial degreaser. Corrosive. Dangerous. And it was sitting out, uncoated, unmarked, and leaking into the floor. Footsteps behind him. "What the hell are you doing back here?" Randy's voice was sharp. Shane stood up. "Cleaning. This is a safety hazard." Randy's eyes flicked to the drum. "It's contained. We're handling it." "No one's wearing protection," Shane said. "No signs, no lockout." "I said we're handling it," Randy barked. "You're a janitor. Mop the damn floors and stay in your lane." Shane stared at him. Randy's face was red, but his eyes were nervous. "I'm reporting this," Shane said. To who? Randy sneered. You think anyone's gonna care what a temp says? Shane didn't answer. He turned and walked out. His hands were shaking. Not from fear. From anger. Back in the break room, Fiona was wiping down a table. Shane walked up to her. Fiona, he said quietly. That leak in the loading dock. Has it been there long? She looked around, then nodded slowly. At least a week. Jason tried to report it. Got written up. Shane clenched his jaw. That night, he went back to his hotel and made notes. Tomorrow, he'd be back. But he wouldn't be mopping. He'd be watching. Shane arrived the next morning without the mop. No one noticed at first. Workers drifted in, eyes down, already bracing for another day. He blended in near the time clock, keeping quiet, listening. Randy came in 5 minutes late, chuckling at something on his phone. He gave a half-hearted nod to the receptionist, but didn't acknowledge the crew waiting for assignments. Instead, he disappeared into the back office, shutting the door behind him. Shane waited. After 15 minutes, people began moving without instruction. Jason passed out handheld scanners. Fiona was already at her workstation, eyes focused but silent. Shane followed the flow, making his way through the racks toward outbound staging. Near the far wall, a forklift beeped as it reversed. The driver, an older man with stiff movements, eased the machine into place, clearly nursing an injury. Shane approached him once the load was down. You all right? He asked, keeping his tone casual. The man glanced at him, eyes tired. You knew, or just wandering?
Knew.
Just trying not to get in the way. Name's Harold, the man said, adjusting his gloves with slow fingers. Been here 14 years. This place ain't what it used to be. Shane nodded. Saw a leak yesterday. Seemed serious. That normal? Nothing's normal anymore, Harold muttered, then looked around to make sure no one was listening. That stuff's been dripping since last week. Randy told us to keep quiet or we'd get reassigned. I've got a daughter starting college. I'm not losing this job. Shane kept his expression steady. Understood.
He moved on.
The further he walked, the more patterns he saw. Safety signage faded or missing, protective gear locked in a cabinet with no one around to distribute it, and workers skipping lunch just to meet quotas. It wasn't broken in one place. It was systemic. He made his way toward the West Wing, where returns were processed. Inside, a woman in her late 50s was scanning barcodes with precise, mechanical rhythm. Boxes surrounded her in stacks up to her shoulders. You need a hand?
Shane asked.
She didn't look up. Unless you've got another pair of working knees and a magic wand, no. He waited. After a few seconds, she softened.
Sorry.
Long week. I'm Marie. Nice to meet you. You always work this section alone. Since Jacob left. They didn't replace him. Said volume didn't justify the cost. Shane frowned. And the volume? She stopped scanning and pointed at a stack of intake slips. Doubled. That afternoon, Randy finally emerged. He walked the warehouse floor with a clipboard and a loud voice, criticizing minor errors, correcting things that didn't need correcting. When Jason dropped a scanner, Randy made a show of it, raising his voice so others would hear. Maybe if you didn't fumble everything like a rookie, we wouldn't be behind today. Jason didn't respond. He bent down, picked up the scanner, and went back to work. Shane followed Randy discreetly. He noticed Randy never lifted anything. He gave orders, barked corrections, but never offered help, never filled in for someone who was short, never even carried his own clipboard for long. He passed it off to a temp assistant named Lyle, who followed silently. At one point, Randy ducked into the shipping office. Shane slipped in after a few minutes, pretending to check the cleaning schedule on the wall. Inside, Randy was talking with someone on speakerphone. I told him the drums were being picked up last week. What do you want me to do, file a report and start an audit? That'll tank our numbers. The voice responded, muffled but stern. Randy didn't argue. He ended the call and slammed his hand on the desk. Shane stepped out before he was noticed. He didn't need more confirmation. Randy was actively concealing safety violations to protect key performance indicators. It wasn't just negligence, it was manipulation. Later that evening, Shane caught up with Fiona again in the back lot, where she was finishing inventory on a trailer. "You ever think about leaving?" he asked. She glanced at him, surprised. "You mean quitting?" "Yeah." She leaned against the trailer wall. "I did. 6 months ago. But I take care of my grandmother. Her meds aren't cheap. This job's steady. Or it was." "What changed?" "Since Randy took over, everything's about output. Doesn't matter if it's safe. Doesn't matter if it's legal. Just move the numbers. I've seen people work through fevers just to avoid getting written up." Shane nodded once. "That's not how it's supposed to be. You say that like you can change it." He didn't answer. She didn't press. The next morning, he walked into the break room early and sat quietly. One by one, workers came in: Jason, Marie, Harold. None of them spoke much. Tension hung in the air like humidity. Then Randy stormed in holding a slip of paper. "Who moved the drums from the dock last night?" No one spoke. "I'll ask one more time. That was a sealed area." Jason looked up. "They were leaking." Harold flagged it. "I helped move them to ventilation." Randy's eyes narrowed. "You had no authority to touch that material. It was corroding the floor," Jason said evenly. "You're suspended. Clean out your locker." The room fell silent. Jason didn't argue. He stood, walked out. Shane stood too. "Where's your badge?" Randy snapped, turning to him. "You're not even supposed to be on this side of the building." Shane looked him in the eye. "I don't need a badge." Randy's brow furrowed, confusion flickering across his face. "I'm Shane Vellner," he said calmly. "I own this company. Or, did you forget?" The room froze. Randy opened his mouth, then closed it. "Pack your things," Shane said. "You're done." Randy stepped forward. "You can't be serious. I've run this place for 2 years. We're breaking records. You've lied about safety reports, retaliated against employees, and nearly caused a chemical disaster. You're finished." He turned to Jason, who had stopped in the hallway. "You're reinstated. Full back pay. And I want a full audit of everything that's moved through this warehouse in the last 3 months." Jason nodded slowly, still stunned. Shane faced the group. "This warehouse is going to change. Starting now, anyone who feels unsafe, unheard, or ignored my office is open. I'll be here the rest of the week. Not in disguise. Not with a mop. Just as someone who should have been paying closer attention." He looked around. For the first time in days, no one seemed afraid to meet his eyes. By late morning, the warehouse was running on edge. Word had spread fast the janitor was the owner, and Randy was gone. No one said it out loud, but every movement carried hesitation, as if people were waiting to see what came next. Shane knew the damage hadn't been done in one day, and it wouldn't be fixed in one either. He met with the acting shift lead, a quiet but capable woman named Teresa, in the back office Randy used to occupy. "I need you to walk me through today's workload, what's realistic, what's overdue, and where we're bleeding time," Shane said, pulling up a folding chair across from her. Teresa handed him a clipboard. "We're behind on 2 outbound orders and 1 inventory cycle. We've been short-staffed on returns and late on replenishment since March." "Why wasn't this flagged?" Teresa hesitated. "Randy didn't let us escalate past him. He said anything above 10% deviation would trigger a district audit, so he had us reclassify a lot of the delays as weather-related or supplier lag." Shane flipped through the sheets. "That's falsification. We'll need to report this to compliance." She nodded. "I figured you'd want the truth now."
Ida.
"I always should've." After Teresa left, Shane stepped into the main floor. The rhythm of the warehouse had changed. Workers weren't moving faster, they were moving more deliberately, constantly checking over their shoulders. He didn't want fear. He wanted clarity. He found Jason near the sorting lanes, scanning inbound cartons. "I'm not here to put anyone on edge," Shane said. "I'm here to understand what you need to work safely and efficiently." Jason leaned against the roller track. "We need more people. Not temps, trained staff will stay. Everyone's juggling 2 jobs. How long's that been the case?" "Since last summer. We lost 2 full-timers, and they were never replaced." Randy said cross-training would boost morale. "Really, it just meant Fiona had to learn picking while still doing inventory." "I'll approve 2 new hires," Shane said. "And you'll help me screen them. You know what this floor really needs." Jason nodded, surprised but steady. "We need safety training too. Last time we had a drill, we didn't even have enough vests for everyone." That afternoon, Shane called a full stop on outbound operations for 2 hours. It would cost money, but it was necessary. He gathered the entire warehouse team in the break room. "Not for speech. For a start. Beginning next week, we'll have a third-party safety crew review this facility. Until then, I want every department to document anything you think is unsafe, unmanageable, or just plain wrong. You'll get paid time to do it. Teresa will coordinate." There were no cheers, just quiet nods and a few lifted eyebrows. Shane didn't expect applause. He expected proof. After the meeting, Marie caught him near the vending machines. Her hands were still smudged with ink from cataloging returns. "You mean what you said?" she asked. "About documenting?" "Yes." "Then I'll send you my log. I've been keeping one since February. Dates, times, missed shipments, temperature violations in the back cooler. Even got photos." Shane blinked. "You kept all that?" "No one ever asked. But I wasn't going to let it slide." "I want to read every page," he said. Marie gave a short nod. "Then I'll print it tonight." Later, Shane walked the dock alone. The drums were gone, properly removed by the hazmat team he'd ordered that morning, but the stains remained. The concrete was visibly etched. It would need resurfacing. He turned to find Fiona standing behind him, holding a clipboard. "You're not here to fire more people, are you?" she asked.
"No," he said.
"You had nothing to gain by warning me about the way things were. You did it anyway." "I didn't do it for you. I did it for the people here. That's exactly the kind of person I want leading." She frowned. "Leading what?" "Returns and inbound. I want you in charge of both, reporting directly to Teresa." "I've never managed before." "Then we'll train you. You already handled twice the workload of most leads. You've earned it." She looked down at her shoes. "I'll need help." "You'll have it." The next day, the district compliance officer arrived. Not as a threat, as a safeguard. Shane walked her through the facility himself. Together, they watched training videos in the break room with the staff, noted the lack of eye-wash stations near the chemical racks, and confirmed that 10 pallets had been mislabeled over the last quarter. By noon, Lal, Randy's former assistant, was called into the office. He sat stiffly across from Shane. His hair was damp with sweat, and he kept his hands folded tightly. "You knew about the falsified logs," Shane said. "I didn't write them. Randy did. But you signed off." Lal looked at the floor. "He said if I didn't, he'd cut my hours and tell HR I was making errors under pressure. I've got a kid. I couldn't afford to get flagged." Shane didn't interrupt. "I should have spoken up. I didn't. That's on me. Why didn't you come forward after Randy was gone?" "I didn't think it would change anything. I thought you'd just bring in someone else like him." "I'm not." Lyle nodded slowly. "Then I'll stay, if you'll let me. But I'll take whatever write-up's coming." "There's no write-up. There's a second chance. You'll work under Fiona for now. Observe. Earn trust back." Lyle stood. "Thank you." When he left, Shane sat alone for a moment. The stacks of paperwork, the audit logs, the OSHA reports, they were all necessary. But none of it mattered if the people didn't believe change was coming. That evening, he walked the warehouse one last time. Jason was training a new hire on the scanner system. Marie was setting up reflective tape along the return zone. Even Harold, moving slower than the others, was lifting with a back brace Shane had ordered earlier that day. Things weren't fixed, but they were moving. As he reached the exit, Fiona caught up with him. "People are still nervous," she said. "They've seen promises before, usually right before someone gets transferred or written up. They have every reason to be cautious." "What's different this time?" Shane opened the door, letting in the late afternoon light. "This time, I didn't hear about the problems from an email. I mopped the floor myself." She didn't smile, but she didn't look away either. Then maybe it's a start. A week later, Shane Vellner sat in the driver's seat of his truck, parked alongside the loading dock of Warehouse 4. The sun cast long shadows across the concrete, catching the orange safety cones that now clearly marked the newly sealed hazard zone. The drums were gone. Yes, but what lay beneath had been cut out, resurfaced, and treated. Just one of many changes since the day he dropped the mop. Inside, the warehouse moved with a clarity he hadn't seen before. Not hurried, not frantic, just focused. The air still held the scent of lubricant and cardboard, but now it wasn't masking something corrosive underneath. Shane stepped out of the truck and pulled open the heavy metal door, entering the main floor. Near the racking, Teresa was reviewing a checklist with two new hires, both wearing fresh vests and gloves, both watching her intently. She caught Shane's eye and gave a nod, then returned to explaining how to log transfer errors without triggering miscounts. He walked further in. A portable whiteboard had been set up near the return station. On it, in clear handwriting, someone had outlined a rotating brake schedule and a visual guide to proper lifting posture. The handwriting was Marie's. She'd done more than document problems, she'd started solving them. Passing through outbound, Shane found Jason lifting a crate with another employee beside him. They were lifting together, bracing under the weight, moving slowly but precisely. The new guy, a lanky kid fresh out of trade school, was asking questions. Jason answered without a trace of impatience. "You've got to watch the corners on these," Jason said. "They'll snag the rollers if you go too fast. It's not about muscle. It's about movement." The kid nodded. "Got it." Shane waited until the crate was down before speaking. "You're good at that," he said to Jason. "Teaching." "I never thought I'd be doing it, honestly," Jason replied. "But I figured if I don't train the next guy right, I'll just end up fixing his mistakes all week." "You thinking about stepping into a trainer role?"
Shane asked.
Jason hesitated. "I don't know. I like the floor. I like the work. You don't have to leave the floor to lead. We're restructuring the role, anyway. You'd be hands-on, mentoring, not stuck behind a desk." Jason glanced at the crate, then back at Shane. "If it means better days for new folks than what I had, yeah, I'm in." They shook hands, short and firm. In the break room, the mood had shifted. The silence from before had given way to conversation. Not loud, but natural. Fiona was sitting at the corner table with Lyle, reviewing a schedule chart on a tablet. "You can't just shift them both to third shift without a crossover," she said. "They'll bottleneck at the dock again." Lyle tapped the screen. "What if we reroute the early receiving through the west gate and give them a staggered start? I'll back it if you can show it doesn't delay the second cycle." Shane stood by the door, observing. Fiona noticed and waved him in. "Got a second?" she asked. He pulled up a chair. "We've been reviewing the shift overlap," Fiona said. "Turns out a lot of the congestion wasn't volume. It was timing." Lyle caught it. "I just looked at the logs differently," Lyle said. "Randy kept timing locked to the hour. We tried breaking it into 30-minute rotations." Shane studied the screen. "You're both onto something.
Keep going."
If it clears the backlog without overtime, I'll approve the new layout." As Lyle returned to the floor, Fiona leaned in. "I've got a question," she said. "What happens when you leave again?" "I'm not leaving the company," Shane replied. "But I won't be on site every day." "I know. I just mean, what keeps things from slipping back?" Shane didn't dodge it.
I've been thinking about that.
"We're launching a rotating audit panel. Not just compliance. Real workers. From other warehouses. They'll visit facilities once a quarter. Shadow people.
Talk.
Not just check boxes. You'd represent the site." Fiona looked at him, thoughtful. "That's not a small ask."
No.
"But you're not small." She gave a quiet nod. "All right." Later that afternoon, the compliance officer returned to process final reports. Shane met her in the administrative office, where a new floor manager's desk had been installed, still bare, but positioned where it could see both inbound and outbound. "No new violations since last visit," she said, flipping through her clipboard. "Training logs submitted. Incident reports filed properly. One equipment delay, but it was logged as mechanical, not procedural. We've got a new maintenance protocol starting Monday," Shane added. "No more duct tape fixes."
That'll help, she said.
"You want me to flag anything for corporate?" Shane paused. "Just this. The people here weren't the problem. The silence was." She wrote it down. At the end of the day, Shane called a short meeting in the break room.
No speeches.
Just a few chairs pulled into a loose circle. Fiona, Jason, Marie, Teresa, and Lyle sat with him. Others stood nearby, listening. "There's still work to do," Shane said. "You know the gaps better than I do. But here's what's changing, starting now." He pulled a folder from his bag. "First, leadership. Fiona is now officially site supervisor. Teresa remains shift lead. Jason will be training coordinator. Lyle's moving into logistics planning under Fiona. Marie will take on safety compliance and internal reporting. These aren't temporary. These are your titles, with pay to match." A few glances exchanged around the circle, but no one spoke over him. "Second, we're launching a peer review audit system. You'll help oversee other sites. You'll help hold me accountable, too. If something's broken, I want to hear it before it gets buried." He met their eyes one at a time. "I didn't come here to punish people. I came here to find out what I'd stopped seeing. You showed me more than I expected, and I won't forget it." He stood. "I'll be back in a few weeks. Not undercover. Not unannounced.
Just back.
Because this what we're rebuilding is worth staying close to." As he walked the warehouse one final time that evening, Shane passed by the wall near the entrance. Someone had pinned up a sheet of paper, a safety checklist, now laminated. Below it, another sheet, a suggestion list already half full.
He didn't ask who started it. He didn't need to.
Outside, the air was cooler than it had been in days. Shane climbed into his truck and looked back once. The lights inside were still on, but they didn't feel harsh anymore. They looked like what they were, a place still working, still learning, and finally being heard.